That was good to go? Great. Okay, so welcome to March's F&C. I'll go straight to apologies, and I have one for lateness from Mayor Susan. I don't expect she'll be very long, but if someone could move. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Claire. All in favour? Contrary, no. It's carried. Disclosure of members' interests. There being none, I'll move on to late items. There being none, I'll go to confirmation order of the meeting. No changes, Ken?
There shouldn't need to be.
All good. Can I have a mover, please? Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Mike. All in favour? Right, it was. Contrary, no. It's carried. Okay. Confirmation of minutes. Pages 8 to 14. No amendments or everything's all good. Great. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Lou. All in favour? Contrary, no. That is carried. Also, right, straight on to Hamilton and Waikato Tourism monthly report. Welcome. Sally, you're going to introduce. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. Thanks for having us at the table today. I'd like to introduce Nicola Greenwell, who you all know is the Chief Executive of Hamilton Waikato Tourism. And so Nicola is going to provide you an overview of the report to December 2022, which has been a changing times in terms of borders, etc. opening. So I'll hand over to Nicola to provide you her overview.
Thank you, Sally. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Nicola Greenwell tōku ingoa. It's lovely to see some returning faces and some new faces, not new and older faces, of course, returning faces. So thank you for having me here today. Returning faces, Roger. Look, we have had a challenging time in the last little while, and this report actually gives me a lot of pleasure because there's a lot of movement that you've been seeing in this report for the last 6 months of the first 6 months of the financial year, from July through to December. So I'm going to go through the report. You've got the report in your documents, a little bit of a presentation, and then I'm going to give a bit of a catch up on what's been happening in the last 2 months. So not this reporting period, but just into this new year. If we just remember, our borders opened in September, so we did move to September to green protection level, COVID protection level, where we could all do what we want. Masks were reserved just for in the health sector, and we were welcoming visitors back. So already we're seeing the really strong rebound of international visitation. December alone, 359,000. I'm going to read some of these stats because I want to get them right for you. December alone, 359,000 visitors into the country. January, 265,000. So not quite pre-COVID levels by those 2 months alone, but starting to really show some really great returns. Air connectivity is not quite back level to where we need it to be, but we are seeing some really good, strong indications that will improve over the next 12 months in particular. I got it the right way again. Where do I aim it? There we go. Machine. Oh, there we go. Oh. So these are just key highlights really, and the numbers are in your report, but I just thought it's worthwhile pulling these ones out in particular. Waikato achieved 738 domestic electronic card transactions. Remember, I don't say spend, it's electronic card transactions with that change of stack measuring from MB, and 70 million international electronic card transactions for the 12 months to December. We've hosted 1.1 million commercial guest nights in our region, so that's 53% occupancy rate across our commercial accommodation, with New Zealand's average sitting at around 47%. So we're quite proud of that stat. The region hosted 720 business events, which resulted in 99,000 delegates attending those events, again for the 12 months December. So that was 154,000 delegate days. So those 99,000 odd people stayed more than one day. It's 11% of the market share for events and 10% of delegate days. So another one that we're really quite proud of. There we go.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
It's interesting, particularly in the question of one staying in hotels and the reduction of capacity. Is that impacting?
Yeah, we can talk about that with this. So on this from the pure stat numbers perspective, those emergency housing contracts are not part of these stats.
Yeah.
So it doesn't screw the statistical data in any way. Those rooms are taken out, they're not available, so they cannot be occupied. So they're not part of the occupancy rate. So that's right. So that's one part of the equation. The other is that the capacity is reduced. And we've had some really strong event capability over the last 6 months, a lot of events hosted, which we can see here in this graph. And so that does fill our beds, but it is a double-edged.
Just a related question, and hey, that stat's great, it's slightly above the national average, but later in the report, and I can't remember the exact amount, it might have been 75% of Airbnb, but Airbnb seemed to be, why is there such a difference in occupancy rate? Because me, Joe Public, sitting there thinking, I don't necessarily want to stay in a motel in a town now because of exactly what you brought up. Is that having an effect, and is Airbnb really going like this at the cost of or expense of?
Airbnb fluctuates each month. So people might be going to the overseas for their own holiday, they'll put their house on Airbnb. Or there's an event coming up and we'll see people move to their beach house and put their house on Airbnb. So Airbnb fluctuates each month. So it's pretty hard to get some really good indicative information out of that. I wouldn't read too greatly into that.
A bigger drive was booking.com.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll bring back to here and we can go through some of that. Yeah. So this is Waipā itself up here in the pretty pink. The left part of the screen up there is accommodation. The right part, electronic card transactions. So it's in your report anyway, but I just wanted to retouch base on this, that the Waipā is 50% occupancy rate in those rooms, 191,000 guest nights there. The top graph on the left there is guest nights by the month from December through to, or January through to December for 2022. So we can see each month fluctuations by a monthly basis. What I'm seeing there when I look at that is September kicking into our event season, that we've got some amazing events that have been happening in the later part of the year, both in your own venue and Mystery Creek. The blip there in the middle is April, so that was Easter, so that shows some really good visitation for Easter and Anzac weekend, particularly in April. The bottom, the pink bars are Waipā occupancy rate. Hard to see probably there a little bit, but there's a yellow line there and an orange line, which is the national and regional average. So that just shows that most of the months, not quite all, but most of the months, Waipā was a little bit greater than the regional and national average. Okay. On the right part of that screen is the electronic spend. The top graph is domestic, the bottom graph is international. So what we're seeing here is particularly the international is an amazing looking graph where, yes, we saw the drop of spend when our borders closed in January 2020, 3 years ago, but we've reopened and we're coming back strongly with international electronic spend. Some might say that that's partly because prices have increased and there is a natural increase in spend. And some also say it might be because people are using cards more. Absolutely true and correct, but we're still seeing that strong return. Move from there because this really just encapsulates in heading format what you've got in your report. You've got little bits of detail about all of these activities. The green is what we've been doing in our normal space, our business as usual, what we always do as our activity. The blue is more what we've been doing with our central government funding that we received from the COVID Recovery Fund. So that's activity that we've really amplified during that 2 years with that additional funding. Obviously, next financial year, that is all spent and done and delivered. So we move back into our green area of business as usual with our funding from our own partners, thank you, and our industry partners.
Through you, yeah, I'd love to ask you about the regenerative tourism and sustainability. There was just a little bit of general comment, but I am very interested in that. I just wondered if you could give me a few snippets on what things you're looking at and maybe what interest you're also getting as well.
And that's quite a long and in-depth conversation. So particularly with that funding that we've received, we've got out an offer at the moment with our operators, a little bit lower take up than we'd like, but we're still working on that. A sustainability consultant to spend one-on-one with our operators to measure their carbon footprint, give them a little easily to understand report, because sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming, this space. An easy report with some few quick opportunities for improvement for them. So that's one part of it. We've run a sustainability day with some keynote speakers back in the middle of last year. We've got another one planned and scheduled for June. We've been working with the Te Aki Promise and trying to help our operators embrace that more. And in a lot of times it's our operators, our tourism operators are so sustainably minded, completely regenerative, understand that the environment, our culture is part of their offering, and they nurture that, but they don't always shout about it and share that knowledge. So some of it is helping them share their stories. There's a really quick snippet of that. So what I wanted to just do, so thank you, that's all I had prepared other than some notes on the last couple of months outside of the December reporting period. We moved into Christmas with some rose-tinted glasses of how amazing Christmas was going to be in the summer. And our operators had all these amazing bookings ahead to recover from the COVID financial loss. And I think, I don't know, we had 5 days of nice sunshine from Christmas Day through to about the 31st, maybe the 1st, depending on where you were. And then we had rain after rain after rain, didn't we? It was the summer that didn't start really. And then we had Cyclone Hale arrive, flooding in Auckland, Cyclone Gabrielle. So we've seen some impact on that in our visitation into our region. The data is not through yet, but I am expecting the data to show maybe not quite as favourable as what December had been, but still stronger than pre-COVID levels. For instance, we have got pre-COVID. We'll still be stronger than pre-COVID, but it won't have been as a nicer summer for our operators as what we had hoped. We've got to set our January data just for the 1 month through. And for instance, so for January 2020, so just before lockdown, our international visitors swiped their cards for $13 million worth of transactions. For January just been, it was 15 million. So it is showing an increase, but it probably could have been stronger. And similarly domestic, it was 59 million in January 2020 and 66 million for January 2023. So great, but we had hoped for more. Anecdotally, we're hearing and through our eyesights had heard that a lot of people were moving south. So they might have been here holidaying in the northern parts of the country and they migrated away from the rain and moved further down the country. We had 2 of our districts were declared state of emergencies, with Waitomo and Waikato in the north. We've had damage through more the western coast side of our region, Port Waikato, where our Raglan was cut off for a little while, Kawhia and Waitomo damaged. So we've been batting for our region with the cyclone recovery funding that came out from central government. And I don't know if you've been keeping across that, but there were 7 regions identified for that funding. Waikato was not one of them. So we did not take that lying down. We were not going to accept that. So we definitely advocated and lobbied hard through our tourism connections through MB that Waikato needed to be involved and included in that, and had a lot of evidence for that. They have since then now confirmed in writing that Thames Coromandel District Council, TCDC, received the portion for the Greater Waikato, and our businesses can apply to Thames Coromandel District Council for that cyclone recovery funding. So the wrong way around, Coromandel businesses would have seen themselves as part of Waikato. Raglan business probably don't see themselves as Thames Coromandel. So we've had to send out quite a few communications to our tourism sector to encourage them to apply to that funding. So not in the 6 month reporting period, but, you know, impacting on our sector, and we certainly came out to bat for our sector through that process and that timeframe. Roger, you had a question last time around website traffic through, I think particularly to Cambridge through our website. So what we did, we sat down with as a team and had a look at how we could report on this. It's not in your report because it didn't make sense. So we have a section for Cambridge and Te Awamutu and surrounds, but then Cambridge, Te Awamutu and surrounds offerings are all interwoven right through our 2,000 odd pages of our website. Engage with nature, events, dining experiences. What did I write down here? Cycling, family fun, rural living. The list just goes on, where it's all just interwoven together. So it's really difficult to pull that out in a sensible way to give a Waipa traffic on our website. It would not have been sensible. We estimate though probably about 1 million visits to those pages. You know, and we've also got to think of our operators have their individual listings, our events have their individual listings. So it's all of those pages. But across our website, 80% of our traffic to our website is from outside of the Waikato. So not the answer you were seeking, but hopefully that helps somewhat. But Waipa is completely interwoven into the region on the website. Opportunity coming up is FIFA, of course. We've got 5 games being hosted in Kirikiriroa and Hamilton. One of only 4 host cities in the country. So that will bring phenomenal visitation for those 5 games through July and August. And we're working with our operators to make sure that they are visitor ready and that we can definitely enrich our Manahiri's experience and time while they're here. That's probably enough from me for now, and thank you.
Okay, Liz and then Roger.
Thank you, Nicola. I know it's been a rough few years, hasn't it? Goodness, every time you come to see us, it's more like a little twinge of hope, but lots of bad news. Hey, I guess, you know, I work in the events industry, as everybody knows, and the FIFA event, I guess, cannot be underestimated, because what we see, of course, is the economic benefit filter from the city out to the region. So I guess I'm just sort of saying, don't ever underestimate how good that can be, particularly when accommodation is all booked up, because people who are wanting to come, not necessarily for the event, but sometimes they are other supporters, will then look out to the regions, and I think there's lots of benefits there as well. I guess I'm always interested in councils continuing to look at events as economic, that they provide such economic benefit. I'm looking at day 2 of Māori Cup right now. We've got Dragon Boating International coming in a couple of weeks' time too. So anything that we can kind of assist you with in terms of bringing more events to the Waikato, I think, you know, that's, for me, you know, we are a bit thin on the ground, particularly in Waipa with tourism product. So we know that, but events certainly, I guess, for us really help with anything that's got an overnight stay. Our cafes benefit, our supermarkets benefit. It's a wide-reaching benefit. So yeah, I just kind of just making sure.
You know, there are some people who think of events as a slightly separate sector to tourism, but it is not. It is part of tourism. It's a reason for visitors to come to our region, and we host incredible events. And you're right, FIFA is phenomenal. I don't think we see the numbers, but I don't think we quite understand what that will mean until we see the people on the ground.
Yeah.
And you know, we're always on the hunt for opportunities for our region in the business event space and the major event space, that we will always attract those events and fight our hardest to bring those to our region. And we know that Waipa have some amazing event venues on offer. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I was just going to ask you just about some of the great work that you do in promoting the Waikato region externally. And I think it would be quite good, because again, it's often underestimated how we might reap those rewards. So I'm wondering if maybe in the next report that we can, you know, if you've got some video stuff about how we are, you know, represented overseas, I think that would be really helpful for us to have a better understanding of what an RTO does and our position within that.
Absolutely. No, look, thank you. Good reminder. If we're doing our job right, you really shouldn't see much of our advertising. You're not our target market. You're our resident. We do some marketing in region because a visitor is 40 kilometres from home. So some of our Tuako residents, when they come down to Waitomo, they'll be a visitor. So we do some explore local campaign work, but for the large part, most of our spend is outside of the region. Other than our Mighty Local, it's on the screen. That was what we embarked on, remember, through COVID and trying to have our local spending local and exploring local. We've kept a little bit of that always on our website, but for the large part, our spend is outside of the region. But we can certainly share some videos and some content. I could take a whole lot of time if we want to.
Yeah, just while you're talking about FIFA, I read last week that it is expected to be the biggest women's sporting event ever so far.
World,
yes.
In the world.
Yeah,
yeah.
In the world. Yeah.
The numbers, and I didn't bring those specific numbers of the supporters and the television coverage. It is the largest women's sporting event in the world.
Yes.
Last time, 2019, when it was held, the American team had 25,000 supporters following them. No, that's just the American team. So
we want those 25,000. They're big spenders.
Great spenders. So the opportunities are phenomenal. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Roger.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. I sometimes think we're better to call it the visitor industry than the tourism industry, because that kind of gives a wider perception of what it is. And this is a general question, but as Liz said, we're in day 2 of the Māori Cup. I went to the supermarket yesterday and the shelves are absolutely bare. So I'm just wondering whether the supply chain challenges that we've got are actually having an impact on the visitor sector and the perception of New Zealand or Cambridge or Waikato or Hamilton as a destination, because you look at the supermarkets and you think we're a third world country because there's just nothing on the shelves.
Yeah, right.
And I'm just wondering if that's relative.
It is relative. It's not something that we've had come across quite like that, but it is relative, and it could be reputational damage. That's a strong word, but impacting.
Yeah, in all likelihood, that's an actual supermarket operator issue. Probably not experienced, and might well be a new person. We had a similar thing happen at Whangamata. A supermarket changed hands, and they just have way too much, little produce ordered.
I won't mention the name of the supermarket because this is public.
If I can, through the chair, I think it is recognised that there are still, will be for some time impacts from Cyclone Gabrielle experienced through supply chains of fresh food, produce, etc. So I think, you most probably have a perfect storm at the moment colliding all in one, and recognise that, in terms of supermarkets, there's definitely signage around advising of those impacts in terms of supply chain and what's available. So I know that they're trying to front foot some of that as well.
Mike.
Hey, on the same topic here, through the chair, sorry. I was actually probably a little bit surprised at only 12,500 visitors for the FIFA for the 5 events. So I thought there might be more. But the other thing is, in terms of opportunity, just going from that 1.2 billion to 2 billion audience for these games. And I know it's very tight what you can and can't do, but just give us a heads up of what are we doing in that space to actually to promote the Waikato.
Yeah, so our team for all major events of this capacity are part of the host city group that meet. I think it's been monthly, and it will get more. And our team will be in the media room as well, so that we are maximising all those opportunities to make sure we're in front, visit these things and do these things while you're here. So we're part of that. We have got some of our advertising through the FIFA machine. We've also have run one, and we're going to run another workshop for businesses on how to engage with FIFA, because it is a major event management act event, so there are restrictions on what you can and cannot say and do. So we are trying to maximise those opportunities for sure. In Tourism New Zealand, they're doing the same thing while you're here in New Zealand, do this range of activities, because we want to keep them in our region, not send them elsewhere.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see the next lot of data after this to see whether there's been a bit of a people want to come here because I've seen something through FIFA
Yeah.
around the Waikato.
It'll be the
Thank you.
following financial year. You're right. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, welcome. Okay, no more questions. So, yeah, thanks for your report, Nicola, and we're all very happy to see things trending the right way, that's for sure. So long may it continue. Yeah, look forward to seeing you in 6 months' time. Great. Okay, I have a recommendation to receive Sally's report on Nicola's report. So thanks, Mike, and seconded Marcus. All in favour? Contrary, no. It's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, tab 7, 8 months report to February 2023. Nada. There she is.
Afternoon, everyone. We have the results for the February 8 months report. I'll take the report as being read and take any questions, but if I could just point your attention, please, to page 43 on the rates growth graph. So the blue, the LTP and annual plan figure for 22-23, we've got a percentage there of 4.4 estimated. That percentage is actually 2.93. So that 4.4 is the rate requirement, but the growth is 2.93. So the wrong, picked up the wrong percentage on that. So that would drop it down pretty much the same as 21-22. So not be so high and stuck out. So that's an error. Apologies for that.
Okay. All right. Well, Claire, did you? Yeah.
I did have a few questions, thanks. Firstly, yeah, I really appreciate, yeah, the level of reporting. There were just a few changes to the formatting though. For instance, previously in the introduction, you've sort of given us the percentages of you know, how much, whether it's the revenue or the expenditure as sort of a total and for an annual total compared to what it would be expected to be at this point in time. You know, like if we're 2/3 through the financial year, we'd expect things to be about 66%.
True.
So I noticed that you don't provide us with that kind of, you know, global percentage progress, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite good to have it in there. That's all.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know what other members think. Yeah, you know, like it's just kind of like a benchmark that you're having a look at all the things and yeah, you know, and I appreciate that you're trying to standardize things, aren't you?
Yeah. So that's basically something that we haven't normally had in the 4-month and 8-month reports, but we do have it in the monthly ones.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did really appreciate the way you've separated out the budget changes and what has already been reported, and then what's just for this report. Appreciate that.
Just the statement of comprehensive income and the other statements do have those percentages.
Yes.
But there was, I know what you're talking about.
Right at the beginning of the report.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. No, that's right. Anyway, now to the real questions. On page 53, which is the other Treasury matters, and I think that's page 18 of the report. It begins with internal loans, and it looks like at the bottom of the, I suppose, that first group, that the internal loans for the first column are actually minus 3,300,000. Yeah, so it's pretty unusual to have internal loans in a positive, well, I presume it's a positive. Yeah, and I just wanted to understand that a bit more. It sounds like they've been repaid and more some. Yeah.
I
looks like all eyes on me. Yeah, so through the chair, look, actually, look, I probably can't comment on the exact reason for that, but look, it will be all around timing. So yeah,
okay.
so essentially what we've got is our debt requirement, and yeah, you know, all those areas are listed, and in terms of the amount that we effectively need to borrow. We've ended up in a situation where our actual external debt with the LGFA is in excess of what we actually needed to borrow. But look, yeah, look, I am sure that will soon be caught up with. Yeah, we do have quite a large capital program, and yeah, obviously we will be yeah, at a relatively and short duration, we'll be back in terms of it actually being being a you know, a positive number instead of the negative. Yeah.
So it's just timing, really. Yeah.
It will be just timing, but in terms of how that's happened, I probably can't really comment to it. Yeah, probably need to talk to Amy, but yeah, yeah, but I certainly don't see that as a major issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. And then on page 64, these are the non-financial indicators. And that is on page 29 of the report, of your report. It talks about the number of annual visitors to key heritage sites, and that includes Lake Ngaroto and the Tiomuru Museum. So both of those sites are really badly affected, and for various uncontrollable reasons, and really make reporting of that pretty meaningless. And so I'm just flagging that'd be really good if we could find some other metrics to measure our performance in those areas. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know, obviously we can't change it this year, but it's going to be a persistent problem. Yeah, so.
The level of service measures will be reviewed this coming year. So we will be looking at where we need to revise plans to ensure that we're reporting on meaningful measures and have feasible measures as well.
Yeah, thanks. And I really support the use of like keeping track of visitor numbers for some of our key attractions. It's just that these two, for some reason, have ended up, you've been really badly impacted because I think we are investing a lot in whether it's cultural or community assets, and we do want to have an understanding of how they, you know, how many visitors they're able to attract and things like that. But yeah. And so anyway, that's, covers that one. And then lastly, on another performance indicator on page 64, which is it's just on the same page here, sorry. The number of staff that have carried out tikanga training. It says that it's in red, but we haven't been given the percentage that have actually done it. And it's all very well to admit that you've got a red light, I guess, but for reporting purposes, I mean, we do actually have to understand, or how, you know, you might have got 49%, or if it's only 10%, we need to understand what's not working, and do we need to review that approach or something? So I just really appreciate a bit more detail that's going to make it more meaningful for us as governors or councillors to have a look at these measures.
Right. Yeah. Ken, do you have a comment?
Sorry, Andrew.
Well, Claire was just saying we've got a red indicator on this tikanga training, but we really don't know how where it could be zero.
I mean, it could be 49%, which we wouldn't be worried about. Yeah.
It's also George.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, I don't know if the exact number will get that to you. It is quite considerably over because of the impacts of COVID. Come into this year as face-to-face training. It is quite low, but we'll give you the number.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thanks. Just read the other one. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but things happen that impact. So I'm talking about Ngaroto and the museum. We all know why both those numbers are lower than target, but the target is probably quite reasonable. But anyway, I mean, they are going to be reviewed. So Yeah, that's all good. Mike?
Yeah, hi, through the chair. Just on page 44, and just back to that. Oh, sorry, because I did have some big asterisks here along with 4.4% estimate. So it's 2.9 around the growth, but we're at 0.7. We're 2/3 of the way through the year. So if you throw 2/3 on the 0.7, it's about 1%, and we should be about 1.8% if we're tracking linear. Which, how confident? I mean, it says that we're confident of making the target. My question is how are we going to make that target?
Yeah, so through the chair, look, that number, there's often quite a significant lag in terms of quotable value. But basically valuing building improvements. Okay, so so essentially, when a building consent's approved, they have a trigger. I think about 6 months after that building consent is approved to actually rock up to the property and value the amount of the improvements. So that is a major driver of that, that rates growth percentage, because what we're talking about is increase in capital value in the district that we set the rates on, and and so any sort of subdivisional activity, will increase that figure, because generally, if you're splitting the property into two, the capital value of the two component parts is greater than what it was before. When you build a dwelling or build a commercial premise, then obviously that's adding capital value into the equation. So so look, we are totally reliant on quotable value, actually valuing those subdivisions, valuing the building improvements, and look, they always do have quite a concerted effort and quite a quite a catch-up sort of effort as we get closer and closer to the 30th of June. So so look, I wouldn't expect it to be linear and spread perfectly throughout the year. They tend to do bursts of work, but their ultimate objective is to get that stuff all into the district valuation roll by 30 June, so that we can set the rates on it the following year.
So I understand that. So yeah, thanks for that. So just to clarify, I guess their lag, there's enough growth. Have we got the growth that when the lag catches up, we are confident we're going to get to 2.9%? I guess, and is that a gut feel thing, or do you go back years and go, actually, it's the same as last year? We're about,
Yeah, look, it's hard to comment specifically. We're at the moment we are seeing a little bit of a downturn in terms of subdivisional activity and building work. I can't guarantee that we'll hit the 2.9%. Invariably, we often have this conversation, and I think every time up till now, we have actually achieved, in fact, actually overachieved, despite the fact that there is a horrific lag in the system. I can't guarantee it this time round. I would imagine that even if we don't hit the 2.9%, we wouldn't be too far off it.
Right. So the financial risk is not, we're concerned, but we're not overly concerned. That's what I'm hearing.
So we need to be watching it. We do need to be watching it. It could, by the time, I suppose, in a couple of months' time, when we start hitting May, if there's still a significant lag, I guess we can make some estimates of what is still coming through. It could have annual plan implications if it looks like we'd be miles off the 2.9%. But look, I don't think we'll be miles off it. I think it'll be relatively minor. And we'll be able to, we'll still be able to produce an annual plan that still has a rates increase at the level you're currently expecting.
Just adding on to that further, like I did compare that to last year, and this time last year we were at 0.78 and we did hit. So yeah.
Okay, Mike.
Just a general question here. So there's 50 pages here. There's lots in there, overs and unders and lead and lag indicators that are on or off. So to those of you much closer to the organisation than us, is there anything particular in those 50 pages that you're going, better keep an eye on that?
Oh, that's a big question.
I think so we do keep a close eye on the growth and the capital stuff. So that's, when you look through the trend, so that's sort of trending all the time. We did move out a lot of the growth at the start. So around September, I think, we moved quite a lot and deferred a lot of the growth, and seeing, particularly in this February report, they've been bringing stuff back in. So because we thought, oh, that's not going to get started. So that's something that we look, and budget holders also look at very closely. So we're monitoring that quite closely all the time. So yeah, that would probably be one of the major ones.
And to Councillor Mike's point about the growth, I think I'm right. George is right behind me in saying that the risk to financial sustainability has been the one trending up in our risk management report, which is picking up on exactly this point that you're saying. It's the kind of the one you're keeping an eye on. That'd be fair.
So through the chair, I mean, growth would be one part of that. I guess the other factors that have sort of put us on high alert there is inflationary pressure. I mean, interest rate increases, the cost of money. So yeah, so there's multiple components, I suppose, of that financial sustainability thing. But yeah, growth would certainly be one of them.
Mike.
This is just I know what to invest in. Under dividends on page 45, what we had a budget of 20,000, but we've got 83,000. And what should we be investing more in? Under operating income, it's just it's 415%. Whatever it is going very well. I don't normally delve into the detail at all, but
I think we received a dividend from the airport, so that's probably pushed it. Yeah.
So through the chair, and actually I know a large city council nearby us was putting a bit of pressure on the airport to increase their dividend. Actually, I hadn't realised that we'd actually received a dividend. But look, the places that we do get a dividend from is Waikato Regional Airport Limited and the LGFA as well. But the LGFA is smaller, so look. Perhaps that is a dividend that has just come in from the airport. They say I wasn't aware of that, Alice. Or are you nodding your head, Yolanda?
It was well.
Okay, good. Yeah,
We're happy.
I mean, through the chair, that's one of those. I mean, actually, at the end of the day, this is not particularly big dollars in the scheme of things when you look at all the other revenue items. But dividends would be an area that we would budget relatively conservatively, obviously. So so it's a bit of an unexpected bonus, really.
Yeah, I think this is the first time in a while that we've got one. So bonus.
Okay. So look, I think all my queries have been covered apart from, and again on page 45, development contributions as subsidies and grants are both well under budget. Now, I talked to Ken already. I mean, this is timing, but when the timing thing's going to come to fruition is in the lap of the gods. So, but and look, the other one is other expenses. That is a substantial increase over both budget and in particular last year. And I had a look at your explanations are there and perfectly reasonable. The biggest chunk of it is brought forwards. But we have got a few one-off expenses in there, or we certainly sincerely hope they're one-off. So no comments on that. It's all there. It's all there for us to read. So
yeah. And I think another one that's probably hit there a lot is the inflation in the So
inflation and interest. Yeah.
Yeah, through you. I was just going to, that's reminded me of another thought. It was about the inflation, the fact that it's set, at 1.9 or 2%. And the comment is that it's likely to be more, but so there's no suggestion at this time of what a more reasonable figure might be in reality.
Yeah, look, I suppose across all of our activity, there is different inflationary pressures. So it is pretty hard to sort of indicate how much inflation has affected us. But I guess when we're looking at forecasts that have just been revisited, I guess we're not seeing any real undue cause of concern there. But yeah.
That's good
Yeah.
to hear, actually.
Yeah, so I guess we're more looking at it from a forecast perspective, rather than actually trying to measure how much inflation has impacted us in percentage terms. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All good. Okay, well, I just want to recognise the enormous amount of work that goes into this, and thank you. It's as Mike says, 50 pages with a lot of stuff in it. So thanks, ladies. Now I have the recommendation on page 32 of our agenda, 32 and 33. Could I have a mover, please? Claire, thank you. And second, thanks, Mike. All in favour? Contrary, no, that is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, development contributions update.
So
Welcome.
yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chair. So I will take the report as read, but would like to identify a couple of points within the report and some other caveats that we can make to this in terms of ensuring that risk profile is low. So through the Plan Change 26 process, we did also include the provision for financial contributions on top of development contributions. So what we've felt with this approach is a balanced one with regards to some of the reactive spaces we're seeing from the central government in regards to intensification and our density targets. So I did want to just flag those outcomes ahead of that. So I'm open to any questions that you might have in regards to that space.
Thanks, Tony. Roger, clear.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Tony. Just interested in understanding a little bit more about DCs and their application within a development. And I've read through, and I know that we're not going to really fully review the DCs until the LTP, which will be next year. But by then, the intensification plan changes probably will be all through and embedded in whatever our thinking is. Just give me an understanding. If we were to look at the DCs now, and it's calculated per hue, then what, if you can, what's the average section size that's related to a hue in our current calculation? And if our densification doubles, will that effectively mean that that average section size comes down to half that, and hence an average reduction in the DCs of about half the level that they currently are?
So through the chair, essentially that's in a nutshell. So what this current DC policy takes is an average expected demand on a 650 square metre site. So, and that takes an occupancy rate of 2.58 with regards to demand for transportation, for wastewater, water supply, and impervious area on a site. So with regards to the MDRS standard, which doesn't define what the medium density target is, but through future-proof, our indicative target is the 25 to 35 dwellings per hectare. So essentially that is at the same occupancy rate for the demand. And in our current WIPA 2050 strategy, we're at 12 to 15 dwellings per hectare, which aligns with that 650 square metres.
That's interesting, those two facts, and certainly. So that means that we'll come down to about 325 average squares per hue.
We'll be reviewing that process just to see, because there will be some areas in which we need to tease out what the demand profile will be with medium density. And with the provisions and outcome of Plan Change 26 known by the time we're entering into the LTP process, we'll have a better understanding of what our infrastructure constraint overlay will enable there. And that will take into account, it may be a potential reduced occupancy rate, sitting from 2.58 to a lower demand profile.
Right, okay.
But it will also take into account the total growth sales demand on the network and what we need to do in terms of provision for upgrades in that space as well.
And your gut feeling on that density per hue or number of people per hue going down from 2.58, you think it'll go down?
With a smaller lot size and a smaller gross floor area, the expectation is that there will be some reduced occupancy, but it might be at a minor level. It might be a 10% reduction. It could be 2.3.
Okay.
But we'll tease that out through the infrastructure overlay constraints.
Good. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you. Clear.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. It's a really complex landscape that you're working in because of the medium density residential standards as well, and you don't really know. Yeah, and then you mentioned that with Plan Change 26, that you've reserved the right to levy financial contributions as well as DCs. Yeah, I just wanted to check that because I thought there might be pushback from someone who's doing an intensification development that they have to pay both.
Correct, and that's one of the risk profiles that we're highlighting back to the commissioners on financial contributions and as a whole. They are an RMA function, and they are fixed assessments, so they're not necessarily planned infrastructure that you're charging against. It is a provision on expected local infrastructure constraints and any local infrastructure upgrades that are necessary. So it doesn't feed into the program of works that council has in the long-term plan, as you can't double dip on that aspect, but it allows them the provision to innovate in spaces of grey water storage, break tanks, those types of things, to encourage them not to increase demand from the base level, and also provide provisions for any intensification that they're after.
Okay, and just more generally, and sort of following up on the questions that Roger's asked, are you looking at a different way of approaching these calculations, whether it's DCs or financial contributions? Because actually, it's not necessarily the land area anymore, will it be? Because it's how many dwellings may likely be cited on there.
Through the chair, we're already undertaking that. So we've got a special assessment provision. So every industrial activity that comes through for development contribution assessments, we undertake a special assessment with regard to each component of infrastructure. So that's regarding a heavy vehicle usage has a demand of 100 vehicle movements per day versus what would be a standard 10 vehicle movements per day in a residential space, but we charge them the 10 HEU equivalent through that process. So similarly with wastewater and water supply and the draw that they're expected.
Oh, it'd be really interesting to see whether or not at the, I suppose, a point in the future, even if it's 1 or 2 years away, when we've got some examples of these more dense developments, as to whether or not there's been an you know, what are the comparisons and costs, and if someone had just stuck to a larger section size, or if they're trying to do this intensification, just what those additional costs are.
Through the chair, so one good example was a relatively compact housing development that's occurring in Kelly Road that's currently under consent, where the demand contributions for the other components, excluding stormwater, they have all increased based on density, but through the special assessment criteria for stormwater, given that the gross floor areas allowed them to go up, they had a reduced HEU figure in regards to the stormwater, as it wasn't the same applied over that square metre rate. So we have been working in that space closely with the development community.
May I just ask another question on that, just to make my understanding clear? If we're looking at this 3x3 intensification, and we have a 3-level property with effectively 3 hues in that level property, then would they pay 3 times the development contribution?
They would pay it for specific components of infrastructure.
Right. So there would be some correction on that for the increased hue equivalent in that building.
Essentially, we would target that as a special assessment based on a compact development. There's 2 elements to that, where an HEU with a greater gross floor area of 70 square metres is charged as 1, but there was likely be special assessments undertaken with all those layers that go through in the interim until we've got a full policy that reflects some level of density targets and has specific criteria underneath that.
Mike.
Tony, I fear I'm always asking dumb questions on DCs, so thanks for being patient with me. Just want to understand how in between these 2 years, what we're being presented with, how construction inflation is accommodated, given the numbers aren't changing.
So for the last 2 years, so last year we increased via the cap to the PPI limits based on the actuals received and the interest rates. So the last PPI increase based on Stats New Zealand was around the 6.9%. This year it's increased by 15.5%. But that's how we've taken that balance approach by increasing the HEUs in our sensitivity analysis to ensure that that was still meeting that same balance level. With regards to inflation and the contracts that we've advised with the infrastructure works agreements, all the variations that have come through for those agreements are still within the same budgetary constraints. It's not increasing those budgets, it's shifting some of that money forward in order to service those capital expenditure projects as they need to be forwarded into that sort of program of works. And we have seen a lot of scale of economy in the sense of those IWAs for our larger construction infrastructure works agreements. One being the 3M's St. Peter's JV and shifting of those budget constraints last year, that saw a great increase in terms of council's ability to service the development and service the infrastructure works without having to wait for that second order of pipes to come in, which were at an increased cost, a significant increased cost.
Yeah, actually, that's quite reassuring. So thanks for the question, Mike. All good. Okay, that being so, we'll move to the recommendation on page 90 to receive Tony's report and agree not to consult on proposed minor changes. Do I have a mover, please? Thanks, Mike. Seconder, thanks, Claire. All in favour? Contrary, no. It is carried. Okay. Resolution to exclude the public. Marcus, thanks. And Roger, all in favour? Contrary? No, it is